Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Inshallah, we will be starting our dars shortly. Okay, I will start the dars now. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش وإذا ما غضبوا هم يغفرون الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. After the recitation of Bismillah, I recited two different verses from the Holy Quran. The first one from Surah Al-Shura, chapter 42, verse number 38. Allah Ta'ala says in that verse, وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ. And as for those who avoid the more grievous sins and indecencies, and when they are angry, they forgive. And the second verse which I recited is from Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verse number 135. Allah Ta'ala says, those who spend in prosperity and adversity, and those who suppress anger and pardon men, and Allah loves those who do good. So the topic that I have chosen for today's dars is the topic of how to control our anger. I have experienced myself, and I think many of us have experienced this, that especially in the first few days of the month of Ramadan, it becomes hard to control our anger because we have not eaten, or because we are thirsty, or whatever reason. We become angry very quick. And even other than the month of Ramadan, anger is a problem with many people. One of the purpose of the month of Ramadan is also to control our impulses, to control our emotions. And the purpose of Ramadan is not only to bring us close to God, but also to improve our akhlaq, also to improve our morals. And for the improvement of morals, controlling our anger is something that is very important. In the verses of the Quran which I recited, in one of the verse, Allah Ta'ala has mentioned controlling of the anger in the same sentence as avoiding kaba'ir al-ism wal fawahish, meaning very grievous sins, very big sins and indecencies. So Allah Ta'ala has mentioned anger along with the same in the same sentence as kaba'ir al-ism, as the big sins, as major sins, wal fawahish, and indecency, fahisha. So it tells us of the importance of controlling our anger. And as we will go through the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will learn that one of the possible reasons why Allah Ta'ala may have mentioned anger along with kaba'ir al-ism is because anger is at the root of many of the sins. Anger is at the root of many of the wrong things which people do. And similarly, Allah Ta'ala has mentioned controlling of the anger as the sign of muhsinin, those who do good. So I will present to you some ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the sayings of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam to highlight these points. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Laisa shadidu bisurati, innama shadidu allazi yamliku nafsahu indal ghadabi." That the strong is not the one who overcomes people by his strength, meaning someone who defeats someone else in wrestling or fighting, Rather, the strong person is the one who controls himself while he is angry. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this is a story that one time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with some of his companions, and a man came and he started abusing and insulting Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. At first, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu remained silent. He remained quiet. But the person continued to abuse Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Finally, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu became, agitated, and Hazrat Abu Bakr answered his abuse. At this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got up and he left. So Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that, "O Prophet of Allah, were you angry with me?" And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied that as long as you were quiet, as long as you were controlling your anger, I saw that an angel came down from heaven and he was replying on your behalf. But when you became angry and you took a revenge on your own, I saw that a devil came down, and I was not going to sit when the devil came down. Meaning, when a person he becomes angry, it is as if a devil is in control of him. Shaitan is in control with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَلَمَّنْ تَصَرَتْ وَقَعَ الشَّيْطَانِ, that when you started taking your own revenge, it was as if shaitan came to you. So that is why it is very important to understand that when a person is angry, he is in the control of shaitan. He is in the control of Satan. And if he does not control himself, it will be very grievous for him, very bad for him. Then there's a hadith which has been quoted from many different narrations in different ways. And the story is that once a person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, give me advice that will be sufficient for me." So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised him, "Do not become angry." And the person repeated his question again and again, that, "O Prophet of Allah, give me an advice." And each time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, "Do not become angry." This similar narration is quoted in the Shia books of Hadith also. On the authority of Imam Sadiq, who quoted from his father Imam Baqir, it is said that a Bedouin came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, "I live in the desert," meaning that it is not easy for him to come again and again to Medina. "Teach me the essence of wisdom," meaning what is one thing that, "O Prophet of Allah, you can teach me, which is the essence of wisdom." All of the hikmah can be summarized in that one sentence. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, "I command you not to become angry." And that person repeated his question 3 times. They tell me something that is the essence of wisdom, that is the summary of all hikmah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam each time replied, "Do not become angry, do not become angry." And the Bedouin finally said that, "I will not ask any more question because the apostle of Allah has commanded me to do something which is all good." And Imam Sadiq said that my father, Imam Baqir Rahmatullah alayhi, used to say that, "Is there anything more violent than anger? Verily, a man gets angry and kills someone whose blood has been forbidden by God, or slanders a married woman." Meaning all of the sins, they arise from something anger. Because when person is angry, he is not in control of his senses anymore. So Imam Baqir Rahmatullah alayhi used to say that anger is the cause of many of the sins. Then a person says that, "I thought about what the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that his advice was, do not become angry, do not become angry, do not become angry." So one of the companions said that, "I thought about this saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I realized that anger combines all types of evil. All forms of evil are combined in this one disease, the disease of anger, the disease of becoming angry." Imam Jafar Sadiq radiyallahu said, "Anger is the key to all kinds of vices," meaning all kind of bad things, they are a result of a person becoming angry. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do not become angry and the paradise will be yours." If you can control your anger, when you become angry, if you can control your emotions, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the glad tidings of paradise, of heaven, of Jannah. Now the question is how to control our anger. When all of a sudden we become angry, what should we do? So Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us some advice about this also. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if any of you becomes angry and he is standing, let him sit down and his anger will go away. And if it still does not go away, then let him lie down. Let him lie down for a bit. And nowadays, modern, there are classes you can take. There are anger management courses. And in many of the developed countries like America, Europe, etc., sometimes it is a punishment given by the court that a person who does assault or some kind of crime, because of anger, they are given the punishment of taking anger management course. And one of the things they teach you, and forget anger management course, even in kindergarten, my younger children, they're studying in kindergarten, and one of the first thing they teach you in terms of controlling your emotion is to change your body language. Whatever body language you are, you change that, you bring it a notch down, and that helps you in controlling of your anger. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave this sage advice, this very wise advice, uh, 1400 years ago. If you're angry, at that time change your body position. If you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting down, lie down, and it will help you. Because when a person is standing, he can do a lot of things. His hands can move, he can accidentally push someone, slap someone, many things. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that whenever you are angry, the first thing you should do is try to step back and get out of that situation as soon as possible. Then there is a hadith narrated by Hazrat Abu Zar Ghafari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he learned this technique, this very technique that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught, and he said that because of that he was able to control his anger. That he practiced this technique, he was able to, that one time he became angry, and instead of he was standing up, so he sat down or lied down, and he was able to control his anger because of that. Then there's a hadith by Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He says that qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam allimu wa yassiru salasa marratin wa iza ghadibta fasqut marratain. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, teach and make easy 3 times. And then he repeated 2 times, wa iza ghadibta fasqut. When you're angry, be silent. This is a very common problem that people, they speak when they're angry. Even in me, I have this problem that sometimes when our emotions are hot, at that time, the best thing you can do is to keep quiet. Because when you're angry, you're not control of your senses anymore. You're not control of your tongue anymore. Many times you say something which you do not always mean. And it hurts the feeling of the person in such a manner that you can never repair that. Sometimes a single sentence can crack a relationship forever. Whether it is a relationship between a husband and wife, whether it is a relationship between parents and children, or friends, etc., or parents and children, sometimes a single sentence can destroy that. And that sentence doesn't have to come out from your heart. That sentence can be the result of an anger. So that is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave this very important advice: "Wa iza ghadibta faskut." When you're angry, be quiet. And this is quoted again and again that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave this advice. So it is very, I think this is the most important advice that I can quote from the hadith, that when you become angry, keep silent. There's no more important advice than this in terms of anger. Then there is a hadith that 2 men abused each other in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of them became angry, and his anger became so intense that his face became swollen and changed its shape, meaning he became red, veins were popping out of his head and everything. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, I know a word, and saying of which will cause him to relax if he says it. Then a man went to him and informed him of a statement of the Prophet and said, "Seek refuge with Allah from Satan." On that, the angry man said, "Do you find anything wrong with me? Am I insane? Go away." Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I will teach you what to do when you become angry. And that was to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And the companion took that message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to that angry person. But instead of following the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of anger, he had lost all of his senses. So instead of that, he said, "Atarabi basun amajnunun ana izhab." That he became angry. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm insane? Something is wrong with me? Leave. Isn't that what anger does to us? That even when we hear what is right, even if when we hear something which is the word of the Prophet of God, even if we hear something which is the word of Allah, our senses are so lost at the time of anger that we completely lose it. And then we say, "Am I insane?" Yes, you are insane. I will quote to you some quotations of Hazrat Masih Maud shortly. And Hazrat Masih Maud actually said, anger is half insanity and it leads to full insanity. So yes, anger is a form of insanity, and a person needs to be very careful, and he needs to control this. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us these advice. Number one, change your body. If you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting down, lie down. Number two, remain quiet. Very, very important. I cannot repeat how important this is. Remain quiet. Number three, recite A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, and Allah will help you in controlling your anger. In the end, I would like to share with you some sayings of Hazrat Masih Maud wasalam about controlling our anger. Hazrat Imam Mahdi wasalam, he said, "Remember, a person who is harsh and is short-tempered can never utter words of wisdom." Meaning a person who is angry or he becomes angry very fast, Allah will not give him wisdom. He will not be able to say anything which is wise. He continued, he said, "The heart which leaps into fury," meaning the heart which becomes angry very fast and is enraged when faced with opposing side, is deprived of any wisdom, is deprived of any sagacity. And the mouth that recklessly utters foulness is deprived of anything which is perceptive, anything which is subtle. Again, like wisdom, meaning a person who abuses too much, whose tongue is always dirty, he's always saying something foul. He cannot say anything. The the Urdu word is lataif, which is an Arabic word also, latif. Latif means something which is subtle, sublime, something which is perceptive. Hazur as Masih Maud, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, he continued, "Anger and wisdom do not go together. A short-tempered person is foolish and dull of perception. He does not ever triumph. He is never victorious in any field. An angry person will never be successful." He said, "Anger is half frenzy, anger is half insanity, and when it flares up, it can turn into full frenzy, full insanity." So this is what the hadith was also, that the person said, "Am I insane?" Yes, you are insane. When you're angry, you're not in control of your senses anymore. That is the very definition of insanity. Then Hazrat Masih Maud said, "Remember, wisdom and anger completely repel each other. They are the opposites of each other. And whoever is patient and displays a model of even-mindedness," meaning whoever has sabr and whoever can control their anger, "is given a light from Allah." They're given a nur from Allah, which freshly illuminates his senses. And all of his senses are illuminated because of that. Because he's able to control his anger. Because he's able to do sabr. And then light goes on to create more light. And that light gives birth to more light, more wisdom. Since anger and fury darkens the heart and the mind, darkness goes on to engender darkness. That anger, it only gives birth to darkness, and it will keep on making your life darker and darker. So if we want wisdom from Allah, if we want hikmah from Allah, it is very, very important that learn how to control our anger. Then lastly, Promised Messiah ﷺ said, two factors lead a person to a state of frenzy. There are two causes, main causes of anger. Number one, when he thinks ill of other, meaning that whatever someone has said, you always think negative. You're not focusing on positive aspect of life. You're always thinking ill of other. You're thinking negative of other. And when his anger becomes excessive, these two things make a person insane. Thinking ill of other, thinking negative, and number two, anger. Therefore, it is essential that one should avoid thinking ill of others and also avoid anger. Then the promised Messiah ﷺ said, man should use his faculties at proper and right occasions. This is the definition of khulq. Like I said in the beginning, one of the purpose of the month of Ramadan is to also teach us the good morals, akhlaq, good attributes, good practices. And Rasulullah as Masih Maud explained that the definition of khulq, definition of a good moral is to use your powers, to use your faculties at their proper time and proper occasion. Rasul said, for example, excessive anger is a precursor of frenzy, insanity. There is very little difference between anger and insanity and frenzy. A short-tempered person is deprived of wisdom. One should not converse in anger even with one's detractor. Meaning when you're angry, do not even talk to a person who's your enemy. Best thing to do at the time of anger is to stay quiet. Even if you're right, stay quiet. Because whatever you will say, it will not be wisdom anymore. It will not be the wise thing to say anymore. Okay? So these are the sayings that I wanted to present with you. I finished today's dars with a story which is related to one of the verses which are related. Sayyidina Hazrat Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the grandson of Hazrat Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one time his servant, he accidentally dropped hot water or hot tea on Hazrat Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So Hazrat Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu became angry at his servant, as is natural. Imagine if somebody drops something very hot, your first instinct will be to become angry. But his servant was a Muslim who was well versed in the teachings of the Quran. So when he became angry, Hazrat Hassan became angry, the servant recited the verse of the Quran or the portion of the verse, Wal Qazimin al Ghaiza, meaning the believers are those who suppress their anger, who control their anger. So Sayyidina Hassan Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, even in that moment of anger, he did not say that, do not quote Quran to me. Or like that other companion who said to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or to his companion, am I insane? Rather, Hazrat Hassan Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu replied, I control my anger according to the command of Allah. That servant was very smart. So he said, Wal'afina anin nas, the next part of the ayah. Because controlling anger is not enough. You may be able to control your anger, but maybe you still have something in your heart. So the next step is to forgive completely. So Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, okay, I forgive you. I do not have anything in my heart against you. That servant was very, very smart. So he read the last part of the ayah. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Not only this, Allah loves those who do good. And Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, look at his taqwa. That someone dropped hot water on him. First he controls his anger, then he forgives him. And when he hears this part, Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin, he says, I free you. You're no longer my slave. You're a free man. Go. Because Allah loves those who do good. So this is the type of taqwa, this is the type of control over our anger that we need to develop. This is what Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu had, and this is what is expected from every believer. So in the end, I just want to remind again that Ramadan, staying hungry, this is not an excuse to become angry. The very reason for the month of Ramadan is to control your emotions. And anger is that one thing which consumes everything like fire. In another place, it is written that anger is like a fire which consumes everything in its path. And anyone who has ever experienced anger, they understand all of this I have told you, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained. So it is very important that we must try to control our anger. And I pray that may Allah Ta'ala make us among those who are according to this verse of the Holy Quran, that wal qazimin al ghaiza wal afina anin nasi wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin, those who suppress their anger, those who forgive people, and those who love, and Allah loves those who do good. So control your anger and forgive people. It is very important. If you do not forgive, Allah will not forgive you. So may Allah Ta'ala enable me and enable all of us to forgive each other and to control our emotions and our anger. So if there are any questions, you can ask now. Otherwise, Jazakumullah. If there are any questions, you can leave them in a comment. So I don't think there are any questions. So Jazakumullah Ta'ala Asan al Jaza. May Allah Ta'ala bless you all. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallim innaka Hamidum Majid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.